What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Bunsa's podcast, the show that brings you everything basketball. I'm your host, Shea Riley, and I'm once again joined by my co-host and big brother, Callaghan. We're happy to be back and are extremely excited to introduce you guys to a very special guest this week. Cal, why don't you give the people a proper introduction to him?
Thanks, Shay. I'd be happy to. Our guest today just finished his third season touring the country playing professional disc golf. He's a top 100 player in the world, sponsored by Latitude 64, Lucky Ace Discs, OTB Discs, and I'm sure there's more I'm forgetting. And is your 2021 Delaware Disc Golf Challenge champion, but most importantly, our big brother, Connor O'Reilly. Connor, thanks for joining us today. I know I speak for Shay and I both when I say we've been looking forward to having you on the pod. How is it being back in Austin for the off season?
It's been awesome. Definitely been busy being back. Been kind of doing a bunch of lessons and practice rounds with people, as well as just getting kind of negotiations ready for next season. So been good to be back with the family and get some time down.
Absolutely.
Shay, super excited to be on here. I know we've talked a lot about it, but what do we have in store today?
Thanks for asking. We have an awesome episode lined up today. First, I want to give a quick recap of how you got into disc golf to begin with and what that journey was like. Then I want to talk about the road life and how that plays a big factor in your season. Finally, I figured we could highlight some of your accomplishments from your career, as well as talk briefly about your time playing basketball. Kyle, why don't you give everyone some background on how Connor got started?
Yeah, so selfishly, I like to begin this story with myself. I think back in high school, I played for the first time with a couple of buddies, and I remember every time I went, I would get an earful from Connor about how I was skipping out on the hoop session and I didn't want to be great and this and that.
Yeah, there was one time in particular I remember calling up with some words. I think other times might have been a little more passive aggressive.
Definitely. It must have been a bad day that day or whatever it was. But no, yeah. So fast forward to we all graduate from high school. We go to college, UTSA, and we have a buddy down there who asked me to go play with him. I think I played a couple times with him before I could drag Connor out with me. And then once I finally did, the rest was history. I think I beat him by whatever I beat him by.
I always tell people 30 because it was a lot.
It was a lot, but
I also
threw tomahawks the whole time, and I was a young, decent athlete then, so my arm could take that. If I tried to do that now, I would be done for in 3 holes, and I have no shot. So, Connor, you've always been super passionate about, the hobbies that you have. I think at the time when we started playing disc for the first time, I think your current hobby was fishing.
Yeah.
Or cooking, I can't remember, or maybe both at the time.
It was definitely, I was doing a lot of cooking and kind of had a little garden going at
Mom's place. Exactly.
But fishing I was starting to look up tournaments for fishing and stuff at the time.
Yeah, so you've always devoted yourself to whatever your hobbies were. But what sparked that interest in disc golf for you and early on in the game?
Yeah, I feel like, throughout my life, I've always had these little moments of oh man, I can throw hard and I'm pretty good at it. And I've always kind of been oh, well, why didn't I try quarterback, or why didn't I try baseball? Or, so I've always had those moments. I feel like, I remember, for instance, Trey Lindsay, someone that we all know, he currently coaching our former high school team, yep. And he went to Army West Point, their prep school for his first year of college eligibility, and they had the little physical test he was doing, and one of them was get on your knees on the baseline and on a high school gym and throw the ball as far as you can and measure it.
Yeah.
And I remember everyone was kind of trying it and seeing how far they could do, because it was something we never tried. And everyone knows Coach Collier has a fast arm,
Absolutely.
Especially when he was still a little younger. And everyone's trying, no one reaches the back wall. Coach Collier is the first one to barely get to the back wall, and then I step up and I'm all right, I gotta show these people what I got, and I just heave in, I hit midway up the wall, just blew everyone on the team out the water. And I feel like I've had a couple of those moments I wish I tried pitcher or something like that. So I feel like not only you beating me so bad that I couldn't let that happen and I had to go back to beat you, because I was Cal's never thrown anything more accurate or faster than me. How can you beat me this bad? And then I think also just feeling like it was you know, like I said, I mean, I was fishing a lot. I was looking for another hobby. I always regretted not pursuing basketball harder, so it was just the perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like I said, you know, you devoted yourself to whatever those hobbies were, and you picked it up really and ran with it. I think you were, you know, part of you, the competitiveness of not being good at something for the first time in a while, really hurt you, and I think you picked that up, and I think you took that as an edge. As your love for the sport grew, and you played it more and more, and you started to realize that maybe this hobby could turn into a living one day. What was the hardest part about that transition and making that commitment to, okay, this is what I want to do. I'm gonna make this my job.
Probably just like the free time sacrifices you have to make. There's, in order to become the best at something, especially like a sport, you have to spend so much time taking care of your body and getting the extra putts up and whatnot. So I think, yeah, having to choose, like, oh man, like I'd love to hang out with my friends, but like I have a tournament this weekend. If I make 100 putts in a row from this distance tonight, tomorrow I'm gonna wake up feeling that much better about my game. And like, so I think little stuff like that is probably some of the hardest part about being an athlete on the top level.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember, you know, specifically when you were in this transition, you had a full-time job, and you would get, whether it's putts up in the morning or a full round before work, and then immediately after work you're going straight back to the course to get up another round, or to work on putting, or to work on mechanic, whatever it was. You really got that itch. Tell me what like the time constraint was. Obviously you didn't have much free time, but you spent it all on what you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, at that time I had been coaching basketball voluntarily, and you know, I liked it, but money wise where it was at, and you know, in that you kind of have to fall sometimes into the right spots in coaching to climb the ladder quickly. I don't know, once I found disc golf and realized, okay, I can have the full control over this thing, and I can try it myself, I think it really kind of took off more for me. And I took a job on that was, you know, it was your 9 to 5, and so I pretty much would wake up, like Hal said, whenever the sun got up, I would use as much daylight as I had, whether I could, depending on the time of the year, I could either, I mean, in the wintertime, usually you couldn't get that much in. Maybe I could get like a 30-minute to 45-minute like putting session in. But you know, in the middle of the year, you can definitely squeeze in a quick round here and there if you're really running through it.
Right.
So yeah, I would really use all the available daylight that I wasn't working. Sometimes I'd even take a little extra long lunch break and go get some putts up, or go to the course nearby. So really just try to squeeze as much disc golf as I could into the time that I had.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I was one who didn't know, but civil twilight is the time before the sun rises where you can see enough to actually do stuff, I believe. And I learned that through Connor, because he was like, oh, let's go play at this time in the morning. I'm like, the sun's not even out. He's like, no, but we can get through the first hole or two before the sun's even
there's about 15 minutes to each day where the sun hasn't quite crested over that surface, but it's giving off some light, and you can
so there you go. For those of you who really want to grind, get up at civil twilight, not twilight. Get up before the sun.
It's the little things.
Exactly. Shay?
In December of 2020, you sold your car and built out a van. You could travel the country competing on the disc golf pro tour. What was that first year on the road like, and what were your biggest challenges for you?
Yeah, it was definitely a big adjustment. You know, I never lived touring in my entire life. Never been really. I mean, I've been in Austin pretty much my whole life up to then. Always lived in a house, and so there's a lot of learning curves. Like, just takes a little more time to do, go do your laundry or certain things like that, and just kind of changing your. Some weeks you got an Airbnb that you're staying at with your friends, and sometimes you're just doing your own thing, and you have a van, luckily, with a nice queen size bed there, so you can get a nice night's sleep. And it's it really opened up a lot of freedom for me, but it definitely makes certain things a little bit harder to do. But in terms of getting me to where I need to go, getting me on the course to compete, it's like my little kind of pirate ship. I get to go follow the wind and get to the course whenever I want to. And
I love that.
I think definitely a big adjustment, but I think I was just willing to do what I needed to do. I feel like, to put myself out on the road and to try to minimize costs as much as I could.
And I remember, taking a lot of time to putting in a lot of time into working on the van and making sure it's ready for the road. But your first year was a little bit up and down to begin. I think you had 10 top 25 finishes, 5 top 10 finishes, but you also had 11 tournaments where you didn't make the cash line, right? So kind of a little bit of extremes both ways. Talk to us a little bit about the pressures of having to perform at a high level, day in, day out, not only to establish yourself as, okay, I'm new on the disc golf tour and I'm here to stay, and I'm one of the best to do it, but also like, hey, this is what I do to make a living. I didn't make money this weekend. How am I going to get to this next? You know what I mean? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think like for me, obviously, you always have that supreme pressure on yourself. You should never feel more pressure from anybody than you do from yourself, and so that's always kind of kept me grounded in a way. But at the same time, like my first year on tour, I was always coming up and learning the game as quickly as I did. I had to take a lot from other players' games, and I think I was still doing a lot of that first year on tour, while also I think trying to prove myself too hard. I think a lot of times I'd come out in round one trying to swing so hard, and then I'd end up shooting a +2 here and there when I could have just kind of played a nice steady -3 or something and really put myself in a better place to kind of find a rhythm. I think I tried to force things a little too much, still tried to incorporate other players' games too much when I was starting to get to the level of, okay, like what are my strengths? Because I'm becoming the type of player that like I just need to do what I do well, because I've already gotten better and gained a lot of these skills that I've tried to kind of sponge from other players. So
Right.
I think that was part of it, and then like you said, just the frustrations of like having those highs, knowing how good you can play, and then all of a sudden like a couple mistakes here and there can feel like all of a sudden your weekend's done, and like golf can be pretty volatile sometimes, just the mental of it. So I think definitely it was a lot of learning that first year.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's played golf, disc golf, any type of golf, you understand how much of a mental battle it truly is. Most sports, you have teammates to rely on, or coaches, or things like that. But golf's an individual sport. It's you versus the course. It's you, the ball, you, the disc, and the basket, and that's it. And if a mistake happens, there's really only so much you can blame, right? So like you said, a little bit up and down that first year. I think you being a sponge was something you talked about. But I know early on, some of the guys you tried to mold some of your game over was, Ricky Wasaki early on, and Paul McBeth. Obviously, there's some of the big names. But you capped off year one with, a breakout performance and a high pressure win at the 2021 National Tour. You got your first National Tour win at the Delaware Disc Golf Challenge, holding off one of your, you might not say it now because you're a competitor, but one of your first role models in the game.
Definitely someone one of those idols guys
who you idoled,
sure. Yeah.
And you held him off down the stretch in a close battle. Just so 5 years after picking up a disc golf for the first time, you became a National Tour champion. Talk to us about what that felt like and what that win meant to you.
It's still emotional thinking about it to this day. Just like, it validates a lot of those sacrifices that you feel like, you kind of sometimes when it goes bad, like you question like, oh man, like, is it worth it? But I think if you truly want to be like the best you can be at something, then you always kind of stick through the tough times. And I think, yeah, like you said, like Ricky was a guy, I pretty much tried to carbon copy his putt early in my disc golf days, and his kind of forehand, backhand combo game that he had is something I always kind of tried to replicate as well. We have similar body types, both tall guys around 6'4", so you kind of naturally gravitate towards the guys who whose body like length is similar to yours, especially in a mechanical game like disc golf. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was huge, and at the time he was world number 1 undisputably that year, and so to hold him off, even though I kind of had a shaky first few holes, it really kind of just showed me like the grit that I had and the determination that I could play with.
Fast forward 2 years, and you had a beginning of a really good, solid professional career. Tell us a little about your experience, what it is like to get to travel the country, all while playing the game you love.
I mean, it's pretty special. I mean, I get to, kind of be my own agenda setter, do what I feel like I need to do to be the best competitor I can, while also getting to travel and see a lot of different places that I never probably would have, and experience different parts of the country, different cultures, and yeah, it really has opened my eyes to a lot of things. Living in the van most of the year, it makes you feel grateful for a lot of little things, I think, that some people just don't even think about. And so yeah, I feel like it's given me good perspective, and yeah, it's definitely given me a new life, and just having disc golf and something to really focus on and try to be my best at. It's really, it's given me a lot.
You just got back from your third year on a tour a couple of weeks ago. Is there anything in particular that you're going to focus on this off season to improve on?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of reworked my putting mechanics last season, so I just keep kind of trying to dial that in. I feel like midway through the season, I finally kind of started to find it, but even then, I'm always kind of tinkering things. So really, I think finding the putt that I really want to come at next season with is going to be big for me. And then just making sure that I'm staying in the gym, doing the little things just to give me that confidence of knowing that I'm putting in every little bit of work that I feel like I need to be at the top of the game.
You just got back from your third year on a tour a couple of weeks ago. Is there anything in particular that you're going to focus on this off season to improve on?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of reworked my putting mechanics last season, so I just keep kind of trying to dial that in. I feel like midway through the season, I finally kind of started to find it, but even then, I'm always kind of tinkering things. So really, I think finding the putt that I really want to come at next season with is going to be big for me. And then just making sure that I'm staying in the gym, doing the little things just to give me that confidence of knowing that I'm putting in every little bit of work that I feel like I need to be at the top of the game.
Yeah, just continue to get better and sharpen up the things that you're not sharp at, and that's it, right? Get better every day. All right, before we let you go, this is the Bunsa's Bucket List podcast. It would be an absolute crime if we didn't talk to you about how your athletic career started on the basketball court. I think I speak for us both when I say that it was our first love growing up. Tell us about your time playing and also how you think it helped or maybe hurt your disc golf career.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely loved basketball, and it wasn't until I kind of lost it at the highly competitive high school level that we played, and realizing that, man, I could have, if I did these couple things, I could have played college, and I could have extended my basketball life. I think that regret is, I kind of attribute that to being almost my biggest fuel for becoming as good at disc golf as I have, as quickly as I have, because it ate me up all the time. Like, me and Callaghan went to UTSA for college, and I finally kind of started to find the game of basketball more, and really became a pretty lethal scorer when we were going and playing just kind of men's leagues and stuff. And I felt like my game was just super well-rounded. I just knew the game so well, but I always just kind of wish that, man, I wish a little earlier I would have put in that extra bit of time shooting or extra bit of time doing whatever. But I think, yeah, just the competitive fire that basketball created in me, I think has bled over. And, there's always the little crossovers from sport to sport. Like, basketball is a sport where you need to have good footwork to excel and to get to the spot quicker sometimes. So I think that's something that's translated. Free throw shooting is something that feels like kind of putting in terms of mental setup. So a lot of things I've tried to take over.
Yeah, to go back on you talked about our time at UTSA. I tell people all the time, Connor was a super solid basketball player in high school, but I think I speak for both of us when I say our confidence was probably a little bit lower than it should have been playing for the coach that we played for, and we let, we both were good defenders, and we kind of let that be our primary mainstay and didn't really affect the game on the offense as much as we would have hoped to do. But I remember getting to UTSA my freshman year and going to the rec center the first time with Connor, and all these dudes are talking about him like he's LeBron James. And I'm like, what? All right, he's always been a good defender. He could shoot the ball well, but what are y'all talking about? And within the first semester, I realized his game's got to the next level. We really figured out, I think it was all mental. It was all mental. We realized I can score at an elite level as well as defend at an elite level. And he helped me do the same thing with my game. We would play one-on-one all the time, and went to the point where I think I beat him one day 2 or 3 times in a row or something, and I hit just some ridiculous shots that I normally don't even attempt. And he's like, "This is some BS. Why don't you do this stuff in the game?" And I'm like, "It's not the same." He's like, "It is." And it just
I told him I'm literally dominating the games. You're matching with me, and we're playing a good matchup right now. That means you can do the same.
Right, and it just clicked in my head. But like you said, I think it's piggyback. I think it's all mental. As far as getting to that that stage where you can slow the game down and really just perform at a high level and not think about what you're doing out there. Just take what the defense gives you or take what the course gives you. Right, same thing on disc golf course. And then to piggyback off of, you talked about how the cross correlations between sports. I get, parents asking me all the time. I coach basketball, so I get parents asking me about, should my kid play multiple sports or should I stick them in one sport and specialize in this and get them. And I try and tell parents all the time that like you should play as many sports as you can for as long as you can.
Yeah, especially as you're younger. Like, as you get older, if there's certain ones that you can tell are kind of taking precedence, then
right. And that'll naturally happen. Middle school, when you can play 3 or 4 sports as a really good athlete, you get to high school, now it's 1, maybe 2 if you're an elite athlete. Just like you were saying, like the crossover between sports, I think are great. Just skill sets and mindsets and everything. But what similarities do you see? You kind of already talked about it, but between the two sports, physically or mentally?
Well, I think size is something that obviously is helpful in basketball in a lot of ways, and it can be in disc golf as well. The longer kind of limbs you have, the more kind of ease you can create distance and power with. So
leverage
that has like an effect on like the mathematical leverage you can create. So I think kind of having that 6'4" long arms body just kind of translated well. Physically, I think it's more kind of the mental part of the game, really, that can translate. I think obviously being a good basketball player, I think you're gonna have the physicality to be good at anything, because I feel like basketball is kind of the pinnacle of physicality. So I feel like that obviously is gonna always make you jump to another sport. It's gonna be like, okay, I feel like I'm right
movements
there, and I know,
can do.
I can keep up and do whatever. So I feel like something I had to get used to was kind of, in basketball you can try physically harder and do more on the court a lot of times, where in disc golf you can't do that. Like,
it doesn't correlate.
You have to settle yourself in and recommit to the next shot. You can't like tense your body up and literally run harder to play hard defense and like make a difference.
Yeah,
like
sometimes your shot's not falling. You can still affect the game by just your effort levels, whether it's blocking out, getting rebounds, or defending at a high level.
Yeah, so I feel like there are a lot of things that can cross over, and there's obviously a lot of differences too. But I think it's just a matter of trying to take the things that you feel are useful, and if it makes you feel comfortable to think about a putt like a basketball free throw, then I think do it by all means. So.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all we have for today's episode of the Bunsa's Bucket List podcast. Thanks again to our special guest and Big Bro Connor for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed episode 7. We have some exciting new merch in the works, so keep your eyes peeled for more about that.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, y'all.
Absolutely. There you go. He took my next slide. If you're not already, make sure you're subscribed on the podcast, Spotify and YouTube. Check us out on Instagram. Thanks. Appreciate y'all. See y'all next week.